All right, it's that time in the expedited 49ers week. It's time for game grades, and they're going to be good. Spoiler alert, they're going to be really good for the 49ers 27-14 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sometimes I go reverse order. Today is no day to go reverse order. We have to start with quarterback because I have a message for some people. Brock Purdy is an MVP frontrunner, whether you like it or not. A+ grade for him. First perfect rating in 49ers franchise history in a game with over 20 passing attempts. Joe Montana did it in 89 with 19 attempts. Steve Young did it in 89 with 12 attempts. Purdy, 21 of 25, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. He has like a 157.2 rating over the past 2 games, which is one of the best numbers over 2 games in NFL history. It's definitely the best over 2 games for a quarterback who's only 23 years old. I mean, what Brock Purdy is doing is absolutely insane, and people need to appreciate it. I'm done with this post-truth world that we live in where the truth doesn't matter. People are just all relative about everything. It is complete crap. When there's a great performance, you can say it's a great performance. When there's a bad performance, you can say it's a bad performance. But Brock Purdy, by any objective metric, is playing insanely good football right now. Again, further to the right and further up is where you want to be on this graph. Here's Brock Purdy's spray chart from yesterday. He's throwing to all levels of the field. Intermediate throws, Brock Purdy, most efficient quarterback in NFL history right now. Ever since they started logging the different throw depths, he's at 13 yards per attempt on intermediate throws. Look at all the green dots in the middle of the field right here. He was just carving up the middle part of that field over the linebackers in front of the safeties. These are all difficult throws. These aren't easy throws. And of course, he's hitting deep. There aren't one of the deep passes in and on here. There was a holding penalty. He went for Brandon Ayuk on a deep pass through a dime, and a holding penalty actually prevented that from being logged on this sheet. So Purdy is extremely accurate deep downfield, the most accurate quarterback in the league, actually, so far this year. He's been the most efficient quarterback on intermediate passes. And guess what? All I see is green down on the short passes. He doesn't screw the short ones up, which is probably the first and most important job for any quarterback. So Purdy is dominant. Purdy is an MVP frontrunner. The efficiency that he has put up this year is head and shoulders above everyone else in the National Football League. We're going to get to see the number 3 guy in efficiency tonight, Patrick Mahomes, as he faces the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is the statistical assembly that Brock Purdy just destroyed last night. Look, this is like a bar that is meant to show percentiles, right? So EPA per play, total EPA, CPOE. Brock Purdy is almost breaking the bar chart. Like his performance is almost overflowing from what it's set up to do. I mean, and if it does ever get to the full point, that's the 100th percentile. That means he's better than any quarterback who's ever delivered metrics. So, I mean, Brock Purdy is flirting with that territory in these games, and he's doing it on a week by week by week basis. There's a certain national media personality who obviously in the fan of Brock Purdy's who actually tried to call me out yesterday. And it's like, how many times do you have to be wrong about Brock Purdy until you finally realize, oh, wait, maybe we're dealing with a good quarterback here? I mean, sometimes the data, it hits you in the face so many times you would think it would, finally slap some sense into you, but it, for some reason, hasn't. And I get it. Maybe the 49ers are big business. So maybe it drives viewers, maybe it drives clicks to try to create a debate around Brock Purdy. But I'm sorry, anybody reasonable uh, realizes there is no debate anymore about Brock Purdy. He's up here, he's in the upper right. You only get up there if you know what you're doing at the quarterback position. Christian McCaffrey yesterday said it the very best. He said that, to imply that Brock Purdy is only good because of his teammates is a horrendous take. He used the word horrendous. He said that you can apply that argument to any good quarterback in the history of football, which is also true. Everybody's in a good system if they're good in football because football is a system sport. There's no such thing as a system quarterback. It's a system sport. So every QB is a system QB. It's either every QB is a system QB or no QB is a system QB. Take your pick. It's not some guys are system quarterbacks, some guys aren't. And Brock Purdy is playing within the context of the game of football, and he is head and shoulders above the rest of the league right now in efficiency. One more time for those in the back. That's Brock Purdy up here. Head and shoulders. Do you see the distance between Prescott and Purdy on the vertical axis? That's impressive, and that's worthy of an A-plus grade. That's what we saw from Brock Purdy yesterday. The running back position, even Elijah Mitchell surged yesterday. Elijah Mitchell's the 49ers' best outside zone runner. That's why he's their second string runner. On the outside zone plays, his burst, he hits that edge faster than Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason is a better gap scheme guy, better short yardage guy, I think, in the middle of the field. But Christian McCaffrey is better than both of the backups in terms of short yardage situations. So unfortunately for Jordan Mason, that means he's the odd man out when it comes to playing time, because if you're going to spell Christian McCaffrey, you're going to do it on an early down situation. You're not going to do it on third and short, because on third and short, you want your best back, right? That paid off in Jacksonville when they needed those 2 yards and Christian McCaffrey got them. You're generally going to bring in the backup on a 1st and 10. And if you're going to be running more outside zone concepts and you want to keep that leverage in with outside zone, then Elijah Mitchell is your tailor-made back for the outside zone. Yesterday, Elijah had a couple carries, 4 for 24 yards, so 6 a carry, but he had that 13-yarder where I thought it was a good sign for the 49ers. I thought he really showed his burst of past years on that outside zone run. McCaffrey, 21 for 78, 3.7 per carry. It was tough sledding against a really good Tampa Bay run defense. We talked about that. They were a top 10 run defense. They were as advertised with Vita Vea in the middle throughout the whole game. But McCaffrey also caught 5 passes for 25 yards. And I mean, just his presence on the field is a game-changing thing. The fact the 49ers were able to rush 30 times for 115 yards without relying on the wide receiver run game. There was only 1 carry for Deebo Samuel. It was the first carry of the game, -1 yard. So it was a standard running back, workman-like game. There wasn't a whole lot of daylight, but the run game provided a platform against a good run defense for Brock Purdy to turn around on play action and turn around and pick on them intermediate and deep parts of the field. So running backs do get an A. Wide receivers, they get an A+ because Brandon Ayuk is indeed him. He is him with the capital H. Yards per route run. This is probably the most accurate metric for receiver efficiency, because sometimes offenses don't pass quite as much. The yardage might be a little short for a receiver, but how much is he producing per every pass route that he runs? The top 3 in the NFL, Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk at number 2, and A.J. Brown at number 3. This is after Ayuk's performance, 5 catches, 156 yards, a career-long 76-yard touchdown pass. Let me tell you one thing about this number up on the screen. Tyreek Hill's 4.06 is absolutely insane. In almost any other year, Brandon Ayuk's number would be number 1 in the NFL. So as Brandon Ayuk was talking to the media yesterday, George Odom walked by and said, that's a $25 million, $20 million a year guy right there. Then Trent Williams walked by and said, no, $25 million a year. Brandon Ayuk is delivering on the A-list potential that the 49ers have wanted to see before forking over the bag of money to him. If it continues at this rate, and later this week, I'm going to show you more on Brandon Ayuk. The separation stats are insane. The yak stats are insane. If it continues at this rate, yes, the 49ers will be compelled to pay Brandon Ayuk. He is a huge part of this offense. The yards per route run tell you, I think, everything that you need to know about that. This is one of the best receivers in all of football. Would be the number 1 wideout in all of football if it wasn't for Tyreek Hill and his insane year this year. And the 49ers pay their own. They have a 100% track record of paying the A-list players that this regime drafted. right? And Brandon Ayuk is on his way to becoming just that. 76-yard touchdown was awesome yesterday. So was that catch and run when he made that adjustment kind of on the in cut, a good 20 to 30 yards downfield. And he's just so springy and bouncy. He can catch it on a stop, pick up full speed, took it to the sideline. I mean, the yards after the catch is real with Brandon Ayuk. The chemistry with Brock Purdy is real. Brock Purdy was 2.3 from snap to release on the deep pass, which meant that, he got rid of it before Ayuk was open. He's throwing to a spot. He's trusting that Ayuk's going to win one-on-one. I mean, that goes back to Purdy's A+ grade and Ayuk's A+ grade. They're obviously connected because these are the two guys that are on both ends of that 76-yard play and on opposite ends of a huge receiving performance for Brandon Ayuk. But Purdy really trusts him, right? Purdy's going to go for Ayuk downfield, and he's going to say, I know that you're going to beat this one-on-one coverage. All I need to do is see the one-on-one coverage. Then I'm going to throw it to a spot. You're going to beat the DB to the spot, and I'm going to have 333 yards by the time this is all said and done, and you're going to go off for 5 and 156, 31.2 per catch. Awesome stuff from Brandon Ayuk in this game. And then, the reason the receivers get an A+ is not just because of Ayuk, but Deebo Samuel, 3 catches, 63 yards, but the 40-yarder he caught late, that's part of Brock Purdy's A+ grade as well. Purdy moving around in the pocket, stepping up, broken play to the right, fires. There you go. Deebo Samuel makes the catch. The 49ers are just loaded. They're dangerous. This is, I think, unquestionably an extremely fun team to watch just because they have weapons all over the field, and Brock Purdy knows how to leverage those weapons very well. The one area where they're a little bit weak offensively is in pass protection. We could talk about the pass protection right now. The pass protection, I'd give them a C. Vita Vea, the big defensive tackle in the middle, caused a whole lot more issues than the Jacksonville interior line did. As we expected, Jacksonville didn't have a great interior line. Tampa Bay, much better there. But here are the pressures allowed by the 49ers offensive line. Burford, right guard 4, Brendel, the center 3, Feliciano, left guard 3. So that's a little bit of a rough showing. It's 10 pressures allowed by the interior line. Vita Vea creates issues. Vea himself only had 3 pressures, but he's at 340, 350 pounds. So he draws so many double teams that he's often not the guy getting the actual statistic, but he's creating the stats for everybody else. And a week after the 49ers gave up only 1 pressure combined from these top 3 guys, from the guys on the interior, they gave up 10. So they literally gave up 10 times as much pressure on the inside against Tampa Bay than they did against the other Florida team, Jacksonville. So, we'll see how this materializes moving forward. Is Aaron Banks going to be able to play against Seattle? If Aaron Banks does play, do the 49ers try to integrate Feliciano in a platoon with Burford at right guard? Burford's given up the most pressure out of any 49ers offensive lineman this year. The matchup with Seattle will obviously be different. Seattle's tried to load up on some edge depth, but obviously with Leonard Williams, you're going to see him rushing against the inside a lot. So Seattle can make noise on the interior, and it's going to be a test, especially with the cadence and the silent counts that the 49ers are going to have to use in the noise up there in the Pacific Northwest. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how this 49ers offensive line evolves. Generally, they held up well enough, but Brock Purdy is doing a lot to make this offensive line, I think, look better than it has been in pass protection. That's really the gist of it. Is the 49ers are ranked about number 22 in pass protection, and Brock Purdy's ranked number 1 across the board in quarterback metrics. So the top quarterback in the league behind the number 22 offensive line in the league just underscores that Brock Purdy is a front runner for the NFL MVP award, whether you like it or you don't. It's just true. So anyway, moving on. Tight ends. George Kittle, oh my goodness. Over the past 3 weeks, George Kittle has been on an absolute tear. 20 catches, 354 yards over the past 3 weeks. I remember about 4 or 5 weeks ago, there were people going off on, George Kittle's over the hill. The 49ers don't use George Kittle, all this, all that, when there was nothing wrong with Kittle's performance. There was one game where he was targeted a little bit less, And to complain about how often somebody's targeted over the course of one game is just not showing any understanding of game tape or coverages. But ever since then, Kittle's gone off for 20 catches and 354 yards over 3 weeks, the most productive tight end in the game by a lot over that stretch. Another touchdown yesterday in the red zone. Nothing has slowed down about George Kittle's game. The obsession over a lack of statistics 1 week and then to just like forget about that later is just showing ignorance for how the NFL and how Kyle Shanahan's offense in particular works. Kittle's a guy who could run block and he can be deployed on a pass pattern. And the threat of doing both or either from George Kittle is what keeps defenses honest, regardless of whether or not he's actually getting targeted. So let's just drop it with this obsessive hand-wringing about whether or not George Kittle gets more than 5 targets a game. It's just the 49ers don't predetermine this stuff. They build a balanced game plan, and they may have an inkling of where the ball's going to go based on what they've seen on tape. But against Tampa Bay yesterday, for example, Tampa Bay ran more zone than man on tape, but then they ran more man than zone against the 49ers. So they threw a changeup in Brock Purdy's direction. And when that happens, you have to adapt on the fly, and you may not exactly go to the receivers that you thought you were going to go to more often during the pregame buildup. So, I think there's just way too much of a treatment of football like it's a video game, like it's Madden, like you could force feed somebody the football. That's just not an efficient way to play the game. It's going to be dependent on the defense that you see. That's also going to determine run versus pass. And I'll tell you what, over the past 3 weeks, those of you who have wanted stats from George Kittle have gotten stats from George Kittle. 20 catches, 354 yards, and his smallest game was yesterday, and that was 8 catches for 89 yards. A 24-yarder early on, that was big for the 49ers, and obviously the touchdown in the red zone there a little bit later. All right, so solid game from the offense. I think that the biggest issues were along the line, and I think that I've already talked about this in my other video for improvements. Kyle Shanahan, I thought, could have done a better job closing that game out. I had one play call in particular that I was not a fan of. That was the shotgun on 3rd and short. It's like, get out of the gun or throw it. It's fine. If you don't want to run against Vita Vea, throw the ball. But don't run out of a shotgun. That's like the worst of both worlds, right? That's one of those situations where you're not helping your running game, and then you're also robbing your pass game of a valuable opportunity. I know that Christian McCaffrey ran out of bounds when he should have stayed in bounds once there late, but didn't end up hurting the 49ers, just a minor detail to clean up. That's why I don't have the running backs at an A+, but I thought that they did play very well, given the opponent, given the room to run, all that good stuff. All right, we're going to move on to the defensive line. The defensive line was awesome for the 49ers yesterday. This was a really, really good defensive performance, but 38 combined pressures for the 49ers defense. The pressures from just the defensive line looked like this. Eric Armstead, 12 pressures, a career high for Eric Armstead. Bosa, 9. That's a huge number. Chase Young, 5. That's his high with the 49ers. Javon Hargrave, 4. That's a lot of pressure coming from the interior. It's more than Vita Vea, who had 3, because the interior guys are getting the most double team action there in the middle. Kinlaw, 1 pressure, and Farrell, 1 pressure. But Armstead, 12. Wow. I mean, if Eric Armstead is like this on a week in, week out basis, you might as well just give the 49ers the trophy now. I mean, 12 pressures from Eric Armstead, who's kind of a forgotten star on that defensive line, right? People don't talk about him enough. Everybody's talking about Bosa, talking about Young, talking about Hargrave. If you add an Armstead game like this on top of the other talent and production that the 49ers have, it is going to be an outrageous amount of production. From a sack perspective, they're coming in for the 49ers. They're not coming in like 7 sacks at a time in this game, but they had 4 of them yesterday. So they had 5 against Jacksonville. They had 4 sacks against Tampa Bay. You're going to win games where you have 5 sacks and 4 sacks. That's a lot. That's a good average to have. But the 49ers are generating that many sacks, even despite the fact they're getting a whole lot of quick release, rightfully so, from opposing offenses. So the key for the 49ers is to just constrict the pocket. That's what you have to do. You have to constrict the pocket. And look what they did yesterday on along the lines of constricting the pocket. This is the average distance for each defensive lineman from the quarterback relative to the league average distance at each snap. The league average distance is 4.53 yards. Every single 49ers defensive lineman was within 4 yards of the quarterback yesterday. Armstead at 3.44, Bosa at 3.51, Chase Young at 3.73, Hargrave at 3.82. Those are all elite numbers. And the 49ers are constricting and pressure the pocket and pressuring quarterbacks probably better than any other team in the league. So it's not all about sacks. You have to watch tape through the eyes of a coach. You have to be smart when you watch the tape, and you have to watch the quarterback be affected. You have to see hurries. You have to see hits. And the 49ers are doing plenty of that. Again, 38 pressures is an insane amount. 49ers defensive line, we're going to give them a nice big fat A for that effort. Hell, maybe I even should have given them an A+, but whatever. A for now. We'll worry about the pluses and minuses later. For the linebackers, Fred Warner was epically good yesterday. You see, I'd put an A- up there. But Dre Greenlaw's got to catch that interception a little bit later in the game. I guess there's a reason why Dre Greenlaw plays linebacker. But Warner had 12 tackles. He was all over the field. Let's start with the good. 12 combined tackles, half a sack, 2 passes defensed, 1 fumble forced. I mean, that in and of itself is A+ material. Warner did miss the 1 tackle, but the 49ers tackling was also epically good in this game. Take a look at this. This is the 49ers are back to their early season dominance. 4 missed tackles against the Buccaneers. So you had the start of the season, which was okay, 7 and 8. That was good. Like anything under 10 is good, right? 7 and 8 missed tackles against the Steelers and the Rams. And then you had a 3-game stretch of absolute dominance. 3 tackles missed against the Giants, 4 against Arizona, 2 against Dallas. And then you had the bad 3 games, right? You had the 32 missed tackles over the losing streak. Then they got a little bit better against Jacksonville, back to early season form. Against Tampa Bay, 4 missed tackles. That means you're back to weeks 3 to 5 for the 49ers, which were absolutely awesome. So this team, it looks like it's gotten past its slump. Nick Bosa yesterday said, and I quote, he said, "We know that shit doesn't start until November." End quote. Nick Bosa knows that the 49ers turn on the Jets at this time of the year, and the defense certainly has. The only reason the linebackers get an A- despite the excellent performance from the defense is that Dre Greenlaw dropped that 1 interception. The 49ers are in a race with Jacksonville for the league lead in takeaways. The 49ers now have 18 on the season. Jacksonville has 20 because Jacksonville actually picked up 3 yesterday. So the 49ers could have kept pace and stayed 1 behind them if Dre Greenlaw had caught the pick. But he didn't. But you still got to give Fred Warner credit for the forced fumble. The 49ers did a good job against their nemesis, Baker Mayfield. Finally, the defensive backs. Jair Brown delivered in this football game. I mean, big time. Gives up the catch, right, early on in his stint in place of Talanoa Hufanga, who has now officially torn his ACL. So Hufanga is done for the season. It's going to be all about Jair Brown at that safety spot moving forward. But it gives up the 41-yarder, but then turns around, embraces the trust of his defensive coordinator, Steve Wilkes, and Isaiah Oliver blitz, guards Mike Evans really well in a very tough situation, then logs the big interception, and that came to play after the hit against the tight end, Cade Otton, dislodged the ball in the football. That is 3 plays in the end zone for a rookie in his first actual NFL action. Take a bow, Jair Brown. That was really good. So was Charvarius Ward. I mean, some of the pass breakups he had yesterday, it took a perfect pass to beat Charvarius Ward, and that's all you can ask from your cornerback. I thought Deommodore Lenoir tackled really well yesterday, but Ward's breakup, back to him, his breakup there on the sideline in the third quarter, was that against Evans? It might have been against Godwin, not Evans, but it was a hell of a play, stuck with it the whole time. And, it was a perfect ball from Baker Mayfield, but Charvarius Ward made sure to play through the catch. And by playing through the catch, he knocked the ball away. Thought Deshaun Gibson also played some good pass defense. And the 49ers are going to need all these guys, right? Ambry Thomas wasn't bad either. They're going to need everybody, especially now that you've lost the experience of Talanoa Hufanga. You're going to have to help a very heady, instinctual, good young player in Jair Brown mesh with the defense. And I think we already saw that in real time yesterday. The mesh was there with Jair Brown and the 49ers secondary. We'll give him that A- for this football game, because the only bad drive for the 49ers defense was when Brown first came into the game and he gave up the 41-yarder, and then Fred Warner was charged with the pass interference, and then the Bucs scored on a 1-yard touchdown run. So it was basically 3 plays to get down the whole field, while the 49ers were shell-shocked following the Talanoa Hufanga injury. So I don't hold that against the defense overly much. Sometimes it's going to happen. It's football, right? Otherwise, they made Tampa Bay work for everything. It was bend but don't break. They made him work for everything. And, even one of those red zone opportunities that Tampa Bay got, that was because of the special teams, which is going to get a C-. That punt return can't happen, especially late in the game when you're trying to hold a lead. It's a good way to let the Bucs back into the game. So I don't think special teams has much to write home about, because that punt return was bad. It was just lazy over pursuit in one direction and then the run over to the other direction. The defense, though, these guys were fine. These guys, they now lead the league in points per game allowed. That's obviously a stat where the offense will help you out, because the 49ers offense does such a good job possessing the ball. But I would say that this might have been the best 49ers defensive performance of the year, right next to the Jacksonville one the week before. I think Jacksonville probably obviously a little bit better, but as far as a 2-game stretch, I like what the 49ers have done here even more than the first 5 weeks, because they're actually stopping the run this time. We talk about stopping the run. If you're curious, I think Tampa Bay was only in the 3. Yeah, they were 3.7 per carry. But remember, they're at 3.7 per carry with the gadget plays. When the standard run doesn't work and Rachaad White had 9 carries for 30 yards, that's 3.3 per carry. When that doesn't work, that means that the 49ers are going to be playing with their toes ready to go on the pass rush. And they were. The pass rush was, whenever the pass rush can notch 38 pressures, that means that you have done a good job stopping the run. And I think the 49ers, after starting the season very poorly against the run, they have muscled up and they've gotten the job done over the course of the past 2 weeks against that phase of the game. So I wrote about Brock Purdy and Charvarius Ward. Brock Purdy and Jair Brown yesterday. So go ahead and check that out. That is now up on the screen. We'll toss that into the description. That's the article in Athletics. So make sure you subscribe to that piece. And, while you're here, why don't you, this is the best time ever, I think, to take a look at the big feature. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey. The key to Christian McCaffrey's initial success with the 49ers, a young backup named Brock Purdy. This is a backstory that you're going to want to read about the NFL's top-rated quarterback and the NFL's leading skill position player, the leading rusher, Christian McCaffrey, who had some really, really profound things to say about Brock Purdy and the lack of respect that Brock Purdy is getting. I'm sorry, the people who aren't, if you say that Brock Purdy's not in MVP conversation right now, you're just wrong. You're wrong, 100%. There's no arguing about that anymore on any kind of rational level. So there it is. MVP candidate Brock Purdy, big up on the screen. 49ers will see if he can continue to sustain that play. They're going to try to sustain their improvement as a football team. We'll wrap these grades up by showing you the tiers of the different teams in the NFL. And the 49ers, they're improving defensively. They're getting higher and higher up on this vertical axis. The offense is increasing its lead over the rest of the league. So they're further to the right for offense, further up for defense. That is tier 1 for the 49ers. Tier 2 features the Cowboys, the Ravens, the Chiefs kind of a little bit. The Chiefs probably in tier 3. They're going to be facing the tier 3 Eagles tonight. See the Dolphins and the Bills down here. The 49ers beat the tier 4 team in Tampa Bay. They're going to be playing another tier 4 team in Seattle. 49ers favored by 3 points over the Seattle Seahawks coming up this weekend. So fun stuff. Those are grades for the 49ers. I don't know if you want to do the GPA analysis on this. It's an A+, C, A minus, and a C-. Special teams and the offensive line hurting the grades, but that played right along to what the 49ers strengths and weaknesses are. We've known that they still need to make some progress on the offensive line. The special teams, I don't think, has been great this year. That might be a wake-up call for them. we'll see what happens moving forward, starting with injury reports tomorrow, right? We'll see where Aaron Banks is in terms of potentially being able to play Thursday. It's a Thursday game, so it's tough. Short week. I don't know if he's going to be ready to go this week. Probably more likely for the Philadelphia game after that. But the 49ers still trying to make some progress along that offensive line. All right, these are 49ers grades. I'm going to be hopping on the radio here in a few minutes, KMBR, so you can check that out. We'll obviously talk about that here as well after. Everybody, we will talk to you soon.